Folks, good evening. Just before I was getting ready to do this live, somebody sent me a video. And that had me a little confused because I was like, how am I starting this live this evening? Boy, just now, let me raise my volume because I know there are always persons saying that they need the volume to be louder, etc., etc. So hopefully the volume loud enough there. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Jamila. Hi, Lenleys. Hi, Ali. Hi, Anne McCarthy. Hi, Michael. Special good evening to you. Hi, Jason. Special good evening to you too, all the way up where you are, 6 hours ahead of us. Hi, David Vincent. Hi, Ali. Hi, Alicia, Camille, Janelle, Euclid, Merlene, Gemma, Paula, Engrith, everybody who's on the live right now. Right. Debbie, you're gonna save up to help pay my lawyer fees? Because you know homeboy toting over that poster right now. So the first thing I have to say is this. I am a woman of peace. I just get up, I just shower, I just say my prayers, I just read, you know. I did not choose violence today, right? I did not choose violence today. Tech guy is who chose violence today, because Tech guy saw how Mr. Susu was wilding out on a thread, and he's like, but this man getting on like he don't understand the visual artist will always have the last word. So the visual artist had the last word. I swear these are not the instructions. I can't even swear on a Bible because me are none in the house. But these are not the instructions I gave to Tech Guy. Hi, Sue, all the way in Vancouver. All I said to Tech Guy this morning is I plan to do a review of the major news stories for the week. So I'm going to talk about praise. I'm going to talk about the Indian High Commissioner. I'm going to talk about all of the violent stories that we had this week. And of course, this whole thing with Foster Cummins, etc., etc., etc. Tech Guy chose violence, sent this poster to me, and you all know how it goes. I am the person that comes up with the general concepts and themes. I am the person that will come up with the content during the live, but Tech Guy is responsible for the visual narrative, right? So I really can't take credit for this one. I can't. There are other posters where I could genuinely say it's instructed him and said, do this, do that, do the other. This one, not this one. This one, I had to blame it on Tech Guy entirely. Right? Exactly, Renee. Tech Guy have man up in the fields right now. Men threatening me with pre-action protocol letter, all kind of thing. But on the topic of pre-action protocol letter, and we have plenty of things to discuss this evening. We have at least 5 major things to discuss this evening. But this just popped up in my feed. Some goodly soul sent me this bit of footage just now.
Unlike what may have happened.
I didn't want it to start just yet. A goodly person just sent me a piece of footage. And the footage, in and of itself, took place in Parliament a short while ago. Right now, there's a standing finance committee is going on. And that's because next week is going to be the midterm review of the budget, right? So I think on Monday, Minister Imbert is going to be reading the midterm review of the budget. So today, they would have the standing finance committee where they'll be looking at any changes or amendments to expenditure, revenue and expenditure. So just as I'm about to start this live, somebody sends me a video and we're going to play the video shortly. Why? Because we, as in the collective here, get called. They didn't call Rhoda Barrett name, but they call Newsauce name. So you're asking, what if I'm going to get a pre-action protocol letter over a poster? Monifi, we're going to get into the pre-story, but we get into the pre-story after this, because this coming hot off the press, right? Hot off the press. And we're looking at news this week. We're doing a wrap-up of the news this evening. That's what I'm doing this evening. Sunday, I have something special for you. At the end of the live this evening, I'm going to tell all the what it is we're doing on Sunday. But I want all to listen to this video. And listen close towards the end and thing, right? Because mankind and womankind calling my name in them out.
Accomplishments and vision.
So, unlike what may have happened previously with approaching people like Ross Advertising, etc., what we will be doing is going directly to the print media and the television media and contracting directly with them. There's no need for middleman payments here.
But hold on, please.
But what is...
You all hear that? Rudy endorsing, who always sounds like he's on the wrong end of a punching bottle, just said, it sounds like a Newsauce contract. Rudy, give your mouth license, darling. And give your mouth license inside the parliament. Because, inside the parliament, you could say them kind of thing and you're protected. Right? So you're covered by the privilege of parliament. Go ahead.
Payment to the electronic and print media.
Yes.
It doesn't say payment to the middleman with an uplift for electronic and print media.
Then the further question will be which electronic and which print and how much per media house.
That would be determined by the specifics. As far as we are aware, there's like Newsday, Express, not Sunshine,
Why not?
Guardian newspaper,
Why not?
TV6, TTT, CNC3, and the proper media, as I said here, electronic and print media, not the voice and those types of things. Yeah, not kick out PNM.
So the whole opposition up in the fields about Newsauce. But let me tell you something. Not one of them bitches will go out in public and say what it is they say inside the parliament this evening. You know why? Because they know they cannot flex on me. They know that at no point in time will they be able to find any contract that basically says Newsauce being paid by any ministry or any aspect of the government. Right? That's not how it works here. So I'm glad to see that all of them, all your cowardly, lily-livered, yellow-bellied quenks could only sit down inside the parliament and bawl Newsauce. That is why I still continue to come here and jam all in all your rukunkatunkum. Go ahead and call up my name in all your mouth. Go ahead and call up my name. But don't worry, Debbie, soon they're going to mention UNC Cabal. But that's all right. They could call up my name. They could call up Cabal name. You know what? We just had them hot. We just have them hot. So I wanted to play that for you because, yes, Stuart chose violence. And you know what? Big up Stuarty for choosing violence. I just like it when a man could choose violence and thing from time to time. Not the way tech guy does choose violence and put me in trouble there, but you know what? So it goes. Anyhow, so it have a couple things that I want to look at with Ole this evening. Number one, well, of course, Ole see the poster and thing already. So let me look at the first thing. So the first item of business, we're going international with the news. You remember, I come here, what is, about a week, 2 weeks ago, and I talk about the Indian High Commissioner, right? All you remember this poster? Remember when we do this program, right? When we are too sahu or not too sahu, hashtag send him back. Well, the talk is, Tong say, the Indian High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago is in the process of packing up his little bag of things and going, who knows where he's going to be posted to. But I am of the understanding that the official documents and papers have come in to say, pack up your business and head back, report back to HQ and explain to HQ precisely what was going on here. So it seems as if Arun Sahu, first of his name, unveiler of Gandhi statues in Cedros, Trinidad, acknowledger only of Kamla Persad Bissessa in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, has been asked to return to headquarters. So that's what I heard. And I just wanted you all to know here first, right, that is what is taking place. Because us here at Newsauce, we are the only ones that would have covered this story. This whole thing break down in Cedrus, public domain, because he put up all the information on Twitter. And no other mainstream media house wanted to pick up on the story and run with the story because them know who butter in the bread, which political party butter in the bread. So when they want to stay in the opposition good books, so they're not going to put anything out there. But so it goes, right? So that's the first item of business, international news. And of course, we still stay in international, right? We're not coming home just yet. We are going to the sovereign nation of Little Dubai. We are going to the sovereign nation of Little Dubai because I had a talk about Alibaba and the 40 Prees. So, all you know me, since them set a Susu and them come out, them set a Susu and them was making bacchanal and waves since 2020. Since 2020, I talking about the Susu and them. And I telling all you that them Susu and them in quotation marks, Susu and them, is Ponzi schemes, right? I said it here. I even brought on a financial investment advisor, Antonio Declan Ross, and we sat here and we talked about it. And then eventually there was a lot more information that came out that pointed to these Susus not really and truly being Susus in the traditional sense, but they were actually schemes, right? Like pyramid type schemes. Good. So when this pyramid scheme crashed, and I was one of the persons that felt me didn't want police to get involved in the pyramid schemes and them, you know. I wanted them to leave the pyramid schemes to run so that they would have crashed for themselves. So everybody would have see that there's not no real investment taking place. What was really going on is if I get 2 people to give me money and then them 2 people get 4 people to give them money and them 4 people get 8 people to give them money and them 8 people get 16 people to give them money, that is how the thing running. And everybody living off of or pocketing the money from the other set of people to come. And so the further along you're going with the set up, the group of people that have to be investing money, the higher the pyramid is. And of course, the people who lower down on the pyramid have to wait for people outside of them to come into the scheme for them to get money. So if you was in line 1 and line 2 and line 3 and line 5 and 6 and thing, you're getting your money, because if you have up to line 20 and 28 and wherever it is underneath you, it means that money coming in from those other lines. And so the people who are on the top tier of the pyramid, them getting money from all of the other lines that are coming in. And what was necessary was you continued to recruit people, because once people continue to join, once people were encouraged to put their money in this Susu, once their money reaching in the Susu, then that means that the people who higher up than them in the pyramid continuing to get paid. So when words started to get around and it started to come out in the public domain, and of course talk started to spread and people started to point out, no, this is a scheme, etc., etc., fewer and fewer persons were joining the Susus, even with all of the marketing they was putting out there, because they was putting real marketing and they was getting people to jump on thread on social media and say, well, no, look at how much money I make and look at how much money I get. Whether or not they actually got that money, they were certainly given some inducement to say those things on social media, right? So they get, some people get paid out. People who jump in the thing from early, them get paid out, and people who jump in the thing late didn't get a payout. And I know, because people who didn't get a payout come and tell me that they didn't get a payout. So we would have talked about Susu here, and we would have talked about what is actually a Susu, and we would have talked about the pyramid investment thing that was taking place with DSS and other Susus. And after the TTPS went on a raid and seized the money, I immediately indicated everything going to collapse after that. Because if you ain't have that money to make the payout, all this talk about investment and investment and investment, none of the other money was invested into anything. So the way in which this whole Susu was being discussed It was being discussed as if it was functioning like a mutual fund. It was not functioning like a mutual fund, because with a mutual fund, a lot of people will come, pool their money into something, and the money that has been pooled together is then invested. Like you buy shares in things, you buy land, you're investing the money in a portfolio of things, right? Whether it's a portfolio of stocks or whatever it is, and those things will be making money elsewhere, and that's how you get your interest and your dividends and whatever. That is not what was taking place with any of those Susus that was sprouting up left, right, and center. So once the TTPS took that money, the Susu collapsed. So the Susu collapsed, and when the Susu collapsed, you started to hear about this line, that line, the other line, ain't getting money, right? Ain't get paid, ain't get a payout, and who catching problems. So thereafter, everybody who didn't get a payout from the Susu and them, I kept referring to them as line 13. So I will be talking about line 13 all the time, right? How line 13 had a whole strain. Line 13 waiting to get their money. Line 13 hoping to get a payout. And Prees would be putting out regular updates, something at a point in time. Well, you remember that when Prees was putting out update? All on social media, putting out video, putting out posts and whatever it is to let people know, this is what is going on, his legal team. Because at a point in time, he had hired Sophia Choate, senior counsel, as his legal representative. Then she stopped being his legal representative. Me know who his legal representative is now. He get David Mohammed to come and talk about African mats, so people would ethnically identify with the Susu, even though the mats wasn't matsin. Of course, once they hear the word African, he hoping that they're going and link up and support it. And in all of that, you still have people who waiting to get back their money. They're not waiting to get interest. They're not waiting to get dividends. They're waiting to get back the money that they invested. And I have continued to talk about it in the public domain. I consistently post about it. And I consistently post about it because I want people to remember that there are a group of persons in this country who invested money in that scheme, right? That pyramid scheme, and never got their money back. One of the things we just suffer from in Trinidad and Tobago is short memory. We have real amnesia about a number of things, right? Plenty amnesia about a number of things. So I just try to not have amnesia. And issues that I have raised in the public domain, I just like to remind people as much as possible to keep an eye on this particular issue. Keep an eye on this particular incident. So Homeboy put up a post on Instagram. Now I just see all his Instagram posts because I follow him on Instagram. And at first I wasn't going to post nothing, right? And then a couple persons sent me the image because there are other people who told him because they didn't get back the money. So they send the picture to me. Look, he having birthday party and thing, and we ain't getting money yet. And I said, you know what? Let me post it up. So I posted up to remind people that maybe this boat ride is a fundraiser to get back line 13 money. And please fly up on my post, but I want all to understand something. I want all to grasp this. It's not now. That wasn't the first time please fly up on my post. Please fly up on another, actually please fly in my inbox. So let me show you. So we have this here. Let me pull it up on my screen here so I could read it out for you properly. Please flew up in my inbox 2 weeks ago. Because 2 weeks ago there was something that he had put on Instagram, and again I screenshot it and shared it because I wanted you all to understand why line 13 continues to be under strain. Keisha Simon, what's going on? You need a glass of Andrews or something? You're sounding like his upset stomach. So Prees jumps on. What is your problem with me, ma'am? I don't have a problem with Prees, I am the voice of line 13. I don't have a problem with prees. I have a problem with people not having gotten their money back. So I said, I find the DSS narrative intriguing. And he says, well, loving, no need to put a twist on it. Now you see, the minute a man starts talking to a woman and he has to speak to you using reductive language like that, like if me and you is friend, like if me and you just share a pillow when the night come. We don't share a pillow when the night come. We don't breathe in one another face. We's not friend like that. We's not even friend. We are not even acquaintances because we've never met in person. So he says, no need to put a twist on it. Me and put a twist on nothing, you know. I keep talking about line 13 in the same way that I have spoken about line 13 since 2020. You can call or contact me for information directly. I'm willing to be transparent as possible because a lot of misinformation is or was being circulated. And to be completely honest, your opinions don't help. Well, loving, no need to put a twist on it. You can contact me for information directly, right? And I asked him if he is willing to grant me an interview. And he never responded. Never responded. Because I am quite happy to have an interview here with Prees. If Prees willing to answer questions from me and also willing to answer questions from the public, I am happy to bring him onto the platform and let him clear the air. Let him let people know precisely what is going on. But I doubt that Prees had the balls. Me and think Prees man enough, brave enough, honest enough to show up here and answer questions. But the offer still remains. If you're willing to grant an interview, you could come on and grant an interview. But Deco, I invite him on the show. I ask him if he's willing to grant an interview. He could come on. If Prees message me now, I go bring him on the live. I go send him a link and I go bring him on the live and we go have a conversation here. Big people think we go talk right here. Waiters went on with people money. So that's the first thing, right? 2 weeks ago, jump in my inbox. Then yesterday, when I put up the post about his birthday party, jump on to say what? Why I don't plug he pawn shop. Your pawn shop had nothing to do with me, please. Your pawn shop have absolutely nothing to do with me. Me never submit, I ain't come with no item and place it in your pawn shop. And I have not heard that there are any suspicious transactions where your pawn shop concerned. If I hear it have a FIU incident taking place, if I hear it has some public monies issue taking place with respect to your pawn shop, of course, then I will talk about your pawn shop. But until then, me know nothing about your pawn shop. I ain't come and lodge no items in your pawn shop. But you they're busy toting. So, I want you all to know this. Prees announced on Newsauce yesterday that he has paid 80% of the persons from line 13 and he is going to pay out the other 20%. So, I want all you to hear it here first. That Prees says he has paid person. Now this thread here is where he threatened me with legal action. I don't know what the legal action is for. I don't know what about my post have him upset. Me know what the lawyer going and come and say because I know that fair comment is fair comment. I have not said anything that is, to the best of my knowledge, inaccurate. Me put out any information there that is not correct. I am aware that there was a Susu, a pyramid scheme, and that there were persons who were not paid back their money from said pyramid scheme. After they invest their money, they didn't get back their money. And I refer to those persons as line 13. So, let me show you where he... So here it is. He says 80% of line 13 been paid. The 20% waiting to be paid based on the unfortunate court proceedings. Do your research before you come on your platform to incite, and he spelled incite wrong, it should be INCITE, and spread misinformation. Hopefully one day you will become a real journalist. Please, I wish that hurt me, but no it doesn't, because I'm not interested in being a journalist. And that's where it does get it twisted. For some odd reason, you all think coming and saying to me, he is not a real journalist, hurts me. No, it doesn't hurt me. I fed up tell people on this platform that I don't think of myself as a journalist. I think of myself as a public educator. And I've been an educator for more than 2 decades. You cannot take that away from me. Right. So he says, however, luckily for you, I have some free time these days, so don't worry, you will see us soon. Me know who is the us, and me know where exactly you're going to see them. So I don't know if homeboy threatening to show up by my personal private residence to make me feel uncomfortable. I hope he ain't stupid enough to try something like that. He says, I'm a man of my word, ask anybody. And I said to him, hopefully the next 20% waiting to be paid will benefit from your word. So I really and truly hope that with all the talk that Priest talking there, that he has genuinely actually paid the persons who waiting to get their money back. Because I saw a number of persons jump onto the thread and tag people, and some of those persons that were on the thread tagging people are people who invested their money in the Susu and didn't get their money back. Now, while it might be to some extent funny, and when I say funny, while there is something that is kind of comic and comedic about people gullibly investing their money in these schemes, it's also kind of sad, because I don't know if people could have afforded to not get that money back. I feel that in many instances, people were investing money that they couldn't afford to lose. And here you have a smart man, right? Because Priest comes across to me as if he is a smart man. You have this smart man telling people about investing money, getting other people to encourage them to invest money. And after they have invested money, they can't get their money back. And the argument being used over and over and over again is that the $22 million that the TTPS seized, that is the investment money. But you see, when you listen to how they explained this entire pyramid scheme, that's not necessarily how the investment was supposed to work. The way you sold the investment to people is that when they pooled their money and put their money in, their money was making money. That's how it was sold to people, that the money they were investing was making money. Clearly, if the TTPS hold 22 million of all of the money that would have been invested over that period of time, it wasn't that money was making money. It was that the money that came in last was going into the pockets of the people who got into the scheme first. And hopefully, one of these days, Priest will be man enough to grant an interview and explain to the population exactly how that investment scheme worked. So that's my international news, right? Coming out from diplomatic circles and of course coming out from Dubai. Hopefully, he ready to come and hopefully he agreed to come on. So what am I moving to now? Let me show you what it is I'm moving to now. Ooh, oh my word. Sorry about that. I think I should lower some of the volume on this.
Whenever we show, there will be a showdown. Wanna make some more noise on that man? Make some more noise on that man. Boss
So this was the PDP launch at the Hyatt on the 1st of May. I know what to say, you know. I just know. I know what to say. I feel like we need to take this in at the start. Again, let me just lower the volume a little bit. I trying to figure out, is this PSA money that paid for this? Is it THA money that paid for this? Because I am looking at this and thinking to myself, the PDP just came out of an election campaign, right? The THA election campaign from last year. So they just came out of an election campaign. Where would they have gotten, where are they getting the money from to do the things that they're doing in Trinidad? Not the things that they're doing in Tobago. And I mean, I will eventually start asking questions about that. So this whole push into Trinidad, where's that money coming from? Who's funding the push into Trinidad? And I'm raising those questions because things like campaign finance reform, only in an election year do we talk about things like campaign finance reform. So right now, we are asking no questions. We're looking at this circus that's taking place here. Because this is a circus, that is precisely what it is. We're looking at this circus that's taking place here, and we enjoying the spectacle, but nobody's asking the pertinent questions. And if you don't start asking the pertinent questions from now, it means that come 2025, when the horse done bolt and pelting going across the savannah, you can't really ask, well, where they was getting our money from all that time to be able to host the event in Hyatt. And the funny thing about it is, you're hosting an event in Hyatt, and you're in that event in Hyatt, easily the most expensive, the fanciest hotel in Trinidad and Tobago right now. You're talking about doing things for the poor person, doing things for the poor man, complaining about fuel prices, complaining about the price of food, right? But you launch your party in the Hyatt. Now, my understanding is the launch of the event in the Hyatt had more persons from Tobago than it had persons from Trinidad in it. So, PDP supporters from Tobago were shipped down to Trinidad. So they would have come off the ferry and go straight over to the Hyatt for the event at the Hyatt. And so, now I want to switch to the whole idea of bread and circuses. We are consistently talking about how we want to have a difference in politics. And part of why I do what I do here on when I do the lives, because I can't even say on an evenings, because it's not like it happens every evening. But part of why I do what I do here is to get us to understand better the socio-political and socio-cultural landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. To understand public policy, to understand how things work, and to understand how things ought to work. Because oftentimes we don't quite grasp how things are meant to work. We know that it's not working, but we're not always sure that it's not working. So here we have Watson Duke. Here we have Watson Duke, not the political leader, but the deputy political leader of a party. Here we have Watson Duke, who is supposed to be functioning as one of the secretaries, one of the divisional secretaries inside the THA. And Watson spends more time in Trinidad after having run in an election in Tobago, spending more time in Trinidad than he's spending in Tobago. And there seems to be a lot of expenditure taking place with respect to pushing this the expansion of this party. Now, there's nothing wrong with the party expanding and the party wanting to expand into Trinidad. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you have to start asking questions. Where is this new party, this young party, getting its funding from? Who are the backers? Who are the financiers? Who is behind it? Because whoever the persons are that are the financiers, those are the persons that are invariably calling the shots. And when a party come in to tell me that it's willing to give me bread when the day come, that they want to give me bread, right? Not teach me how to make bread, not teach me how to plant wheat or not teach me how to make flour, but just give me bread. I have to ask questions. So we see in the spectacle, and we see in the beginning of handouts from a political party. And I want you all, because between now and whenever there is an election, another election the PDP is taking part in, whether it is local government election or general election, I will be talking about these things. I will be raising these issues. I will be asking the questions. That's how I stop. So I is. Because I can't rely on mainstream media to do it. All right? Mainstream media ain't going to do it for us. And at that Hyatt launch, interestingly, Watson did promise that he was going to bring bread to people in Laventille. Now, there are lots of things that people in urban depressed communities, and I'm not going to say black urban depressed communities, I'm just going to say urban depressed communities. But there are a lot of things that people in urban depressed communities need. And I don't think that bread is at the top of that list. I think that the things that are on the top of that list would be opportunities, access to either education, jobs, funding to be able to start businesses, ideas for starting businesses. And when I'm talking about businesses, I'm talking about businesses that will allow people to be able to earn a decent living, right? Those are the things that I think people in urban depressed communities need. I don't think they need somebody going around handing out what looks to be like off-brand Kiss loaf, right? Like a Kiss butter loaf. I don't know. Maybe that's what people in Laventille said they wanted. Maybe that is the case. And if that is the case, then, get in the bread. That's all I could say at this point in time. So, bread and circuses. And now I'm going to move on to something that is a lot more serious in tone. I'm going to talk about sowing and reaping. And I'm talking about sowing and reaping with respect to violence. And the reason I'm talking about sowing and reaping with respect to violence is that we tend to think that things are happening in cycles here. We tend to think that every single time something comes, an issue comes around, we act rather, not tend to think, we act as if it's the first time it's happening. And it's not the first time that it's happening. It's never the first time that anything is happening here. Rosanna Glasgow, you are correct. What Duke and they carrying on with is a continuation of the dependency syndrome. And I don't understand why, as a people, we will in one breath complain about handouts, complain about the dependency syndrome, complain about politicians disrespecting us by thinking they could just come and give us a little something and teeth we had. And then in the next breath, in the absolute next breath, you are seeing it. And you're seeing it, people lapping it up. So when I see things like that, I have to pause and ask myself, is it that people not seeing the dissonance? Is it that they're not seeing the hypocrisy of complaining about handouts and complaining about politicians pandering and then after that accepting the, I don't know. But when I started talking about sowing and reaping, it is with a view to looking at a couple things here. A couple weeks ago, we talked about this. And it was an issue that was, led to a lot of discussion in Trinidad and Tobago, with tons of people, the argument kind of being split down the middle. Some persons thinking it was okay to slap Chris Rock, other people saying no. And my position here I was very straightforward. I don't think that violence is a way to deal with conflict. And I don't think that violence is a way to deal with conflict because you don't get to pick and choose which conflict gets dealt with, which conflict you use violence for and which conflicts you don't use violence for. So the minute you open up a discussion and you decide that in that discussion on violence, you're going to say that violence is acceptable in some situations but not acceptable in other situations, you're going to start to get yourself in sticky waters. Now, with respect to the slap that took place between Chris Rock and Will Smith, Chris Rock made a joke, and everybody, or rather lots of people, deemed the joke to be disrespectful, offensive to Jada. And they felt that Will Smith was well within his right to defend his wife by slapping Chris Rock. So I'm going to ask what it is. In a situation where man and woman together, husband and wife in a domestic situation, if the husband feel that the wife say or do something to offend him that he find offensive, is it okay for the husband to slap down the wife? Asking all of that. Or they could think about it and all they could get back to me. I also want to ask this question. In a home, if a child has said something that the parent finds offensive, or the parent has crossed the line, so either has said or done something that the parent finds offensive, or the parent finds the child has crossed the line, is it okay for the parent to beat the child, to slap down the child? I'm asking those questions because once you have set a particular precedent or principle, if you have decided that if someone has crossed a line, if someone has done something to offend you, then it is okay to slap or beat or hit that person, then that particular principle has to work across the board. It means that it's okay, if you're saying that once a child has done something offensive, it's okay to beat and slap a child. Then if a woman has done something offensive in a relationship, it's okay to beat and slap the woman. Or if the man has done something offensive in the relationship, it's okay to beat and slap the man. And if an employee has done something offensive at his or her place of work, it is okay for the employer to beat or slap the employee. You see how when you start to extrapolate on a particular theory or a particular principle, and it can't apply across the board, how ridiculous it sound? Right. So that's why I wanted to come and see. All of the gender-based violence that we are seeing this past week, and everybody up in their fields about it, it is start now. Because we've always ever been a violent society. We are a very violent society. The reason you're feeling again like it coming in a wave is that media is focused on it. So a couple things would have happened last week or week before last week, and the stories are what's grabbing public attention. The stories are what getting people to click on posts or getting people to pick up newspapers on the street. And because they know that there are certain stories that trigger human emotion, they look for those stories. They find those stories and they give those stories prominence. If by next week something else triggering people, because what happens is the population after a while is get tired and desensitized from an issue, right? So if we find, well, oh God, 5 whole days are domestic violence stories, we start to get tired and we click in less and we comment in less. And so once they see that the algorithms for that beginning to go down, they switch to something else. And that's media. That's the role that media is playing in bringing things to people's minds. But I now want to talk about the last 2 years, because we continue to think that the pandemic is done and we existed in a vacuum. We're not existing in a vacuum. But let me jump the gun. There are a couple things that I want to look at. I don't know how many of you are following this particular case. I am following this case. So every night, because I'm not following the trial during the day, every night I will go onto YouTube and I will review some of the trial. This is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. They're in the midst of a domestic violence trial right now, where she would have written a column in 2018 accusing him of abusing her in their marriage, and he is suing her for defamation. And the testimony has been very interesting testimony, because it's the first time that I am aware of hearing a male celebrity come out and say that he was being abused in his marriage. So I think plenty of you all need to listen to this, because here is an international story focused on gender-based violence, but focused on gender-based violence from a different perspective. And it's important to get that other perspective, because here you have a man talking about his experiences in a marriage, and it's sounding the way you would, his testimony sounds like the kind of testimony you would hear from a woman, right? Talking about feeling threatened, and the ways in which he was being dealt with, and she do business on top of a pillow, all kind of nonsense like that. And so y'all should follow this story, if only to see how a domestic violence trial gets dealt with in other parts of the world. But that's Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. These are some of the headlines. These are some of the headlines this week. So you have mother chopped to death. How did Kimani die? Hunt for Kimani. Violent children. This is stories from the last 3 weeks. End the bloodshed. All-out attack. Killing rampage. Matron some hell. Horrific abuse. Those are the headlines. So every day for the last 2 weeks, you get up, you go online to look at news stories. These are the headlines you're seeing. If you're walking through town, these are the headlines you'd be seeing on the newspapers going through Port of Spain. When you are seeing these headlines leaping out at you, whether virtually or in real life, the impression you will get is that all that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago is violence, which is not to say that we are not violent. And we are violent, and we don't think about that. We don't think about how different aspects of violence in different spheres of our life, how it affects different things. So, for all of the persons on this live who are champions of beating children, I want you all to understand something. If as a parent you believe in the gospel of cut ass for your son and your daughter, understand this. That gospel of cut ass for your son and your daughter, when you sow that into them as children, know and understand what the rest of society is going to be reaping later down the line. Because if you normalize violence in children, when they grow up as adults, they are going to practice violence. And they are going to repeat violence. They are going to think that the only way you resolve issues, you resolve conflict, you discipline people is through violence. And children are people. Children can understand. You can explain and reason with a child. So when you have taken that decision to use punishment, to use violence as your form of discipline, understand down the road was likely to take place. That the little boys right now will grow up to be the sort of men who can't deal with their emotions in a particular way and will treat with women in a particular way. Understand too that women will also grow up either accepting violence or being the ones to perpetuate violence against their own children or even their spouses and partners. And so I think we need to think about how exactly our practices within the homes and other spheres, other areas, how that is feeding into the violence that we're seeing. I also think that we need to understand that we're not the only spaces in the world that are dealing up with violence. There is gender-based violence taking place all over the world right now. There's an increase, a rise, an uptick in gender-based violence over the last 2 years as a result of the pandemic, because there are other things that feed into gender-based violence, right? Lack of resources coming from low socioeconomic background, low education background. A lot of different things feed into gender-based violence and the communities that would experience gender-based violence more predominantly. And so when you go and you do a casual search online, and you will see that the last 2 years of the lockdown, with people being in confined spaces, less interaction, less ability to move about freely, an encroachment on people's rights, it has led to an increase and an uptick in how people are lashing out. So what you're seeing with school children right now in this term where more children were back out to school. There are a couple of things that we need to unpack where this is concerned. One, we didn't have children, all children I should say, we didn't have all school children out in school for 2 years. You had small groups of children out to school over the period of the pandemic, right? Because in 2020, nobody was in school. Then eventually they gradually allowed just students that were doing exams back out to school. And then last year, 2021, they allowed a couple other classes, like more than just the fifth form and sixth form. They were letting fourth form, fifth form, sixth form. They were gradually letting students back out to school. And then this term, all the students. So all of the students that would have spent 2 years in front of a screen, no longer socializing in the way in which they would have been socializing in the past, they're now back out in the school system. Bear in mind too, if you didn't have children going to school in large numbers over the last 2 years, you were unlikely to be hearing about school fights. That wouldn't be making news. How would you have school fights making news if you don't have lots of children out to school? So children would be home, at home, their individual homes. And so it would cut down on the amount of interaction that would have been taking place that would have allowed for there to be school fights. Now, more children back out to school. And more children back out to school still trying to cope with being masked, having to distance, having to come to terms with being back out navigating school in a pandemic as teenagers with all of the other issues that they're dealing up with. That's a pressure cooker system, and you can't not expect that people aren't going to lash out and push back in a pressure cooker system. I am an adult working from home, having to deal up with co-workers in my workspace, and very often there are things that are happening that I'm not thrilled about, and I sit at home here stewing, right? Like real angry. I feel if I was back out in a face-to-face workspace, by now me and about 3 or 4 members of my staff, 3 or 4 of my colleagues, we would have it out. Maybe not necessarily cough and kick and that kind of thing, so, but I would have had a few sharp things to say. And so you have these children back out after 2 years in a lockdown situation or in a constrained situation, and I don't know what coping skills they were taught while they had to be home for 2 years, and I also don't know what coping skills they have been given now that they're back out navigating school life again. And we need to grasp that being in your home for 2 years and then being out of your home after 2 years is 2 different kinds of scenarios. And people need transition periods, they need readjustment periods, and they also need to be taught coping skills. And I don't think that we as a society even understand what coping skills are and how to pass coping skills on to our children. Right? And so while we're here and we're talking about how violent the children are, I am not seeing that the children are any more violent now than they would have been when I was a child. What I am seeing is that children are having a hard time readjusting to being back out, and they don't know how to cope. And if they don't know how to cope, and the adults don't know how to cope either, because that's the other thing, right? I feel as if the adults themselves aren't clear on how they meant to cope. And we need to be careful about the kinds of messages we're sending to children about violence, conflict resolution, and violent behavior as adults. We need to be careful about that. So because all you know me, I don't want to leave all you without something to hold on to. If you are a parent with children right now that are having a hard time adjusting to being back out to school, perhaps you need to sit with them on the weekend and have a conversation with them. Get them to explain to you what precisely is making being back out at school difficult for them. Just let them talk. Let them unburden. Let them offload. And then, as a parent, you can ask them, what would make this situation easier? What would make this situation something that you can cope with? And then try and see where you can navigate and negotiate. Because maybe they need to talk to you all. Maybe that's what they need. Some safe space to explain what exactly is going on. Right, so that is sowing and reaping and violence. I wanted to touch on the Kimani thing a little bit, but I feel I want to pull back from that. And you know why I want to pull back from it? Because I ain't trying to benefit off of people's pain and people's anger. There was a lot of anger and pain this week. There was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of disappointment. And there was a lot of people pelting blame left, right, and center. A child died. That's the first thing. A child died. And we need to understand people's responsibilities as parents. And we also need to understand people's responsibilities as the village. You all remember the young man, Aaron Subero, a couple weeks ago, when they were going to deny him the president's medal. And I found out the story about how he was going to be denied the president's medal. And we as a village showed up for Karen. I put the story out there. Everybody who follows Newsauce, you all made your feelings known as the public, and the public pressure that was brought to bear where the topic was concerned allowed for the Ministry of Education to realize how upset we were about the denial of Aaron Subero. And with that denial of Aaron Subero, and with that public pressure, the denial was retracted. And they worked out something that would have allowed for Aaron as well as the other young lady to receive the award. And that's because the village showed up and supported the parent. It could not have happened if his parents weren't doing their duty as parents, and it could not have happened if the village didn't show up and support. And so with Kimani's situation, the parents didn't do their part. You can't convince me otherwise. Can't be a situation where you got a toddler and you have people in a household and there's not at least one person keeping an eye on the toddler. So you have to bear that in mind. The parents have a responsibility as caregivers to a child. They have got a responsibility. The village also has a responsibility. But you cannot decide that you want to function, that you, the public, so hurt and so in pain over what has happened to the child that you now want to kill people. You want to lynch people. You want to hang people for what happened to the child. And this is where I started to get concerned, because I thought to myself, but if people felt that they could have get away with it, they might have gone and grab the parents as well as the villager and sling them up from a tree. So we get so angry about the death of a child, and there's nothing wrong with being hurt and pained over it, because I was real sour when I get the news. I was hoping that the child was, just hiding somewhere or in some neighbor yard somewhere. That's what I was hoping. And then when I get the message that they found the child, I was like, alive? And the person was like, no, not alive. They find the body in the river. And for the next 2 days I was sour. I walk up the road, was talking to the doubles man about it. I mean, he talking, I talking, both of we paws raising as we discussing how we was feeling about the issue and how much we were hoping and praying that the child would have been found. And I walk back up the road, come back home, and sat down and started looking at social media and seeing people lashing out at the lady, Miss Kwankep, and then lashing out at the parents. And I'm like, okay, yes, they were negligent, sorry. Yes, they were negligent. I'm not going to say that they weren't negligent. I feel though that the parents had more responsibility. The family of the baby had more responsibility than the neighbor. I also felt that the neighbor ought to have been more humane, more kind in terms of her response to the child's distress, and acted in a different manner. That's my personal opinion. But at no point in time did I feel that I had to accuse the neighbor, that I wanted to extract a pound of flesh from the neighbor, that I wanted to blame her and attack her. And then the conspiracy theories. Whew. Listen, all they love a conspiracy theory, you know. And something is a conspiracy theory when you have zero evidence to back it up, or very little evidence to back it up. You see, when you're there and you're extrapolating and your brain jump into this and your brain jump into that and your brain jump into the other, but you have very little evidence, what you begin to do is create conspiracies. And we need to step back from that. I have seen people get to the point where I have seen people say that, what is devil sacrifice? And I was like, hold up. How we reach there? How we jump from negligence on the part of the parent leading to a child's life being endangered, to devil sacrifice. And that's because people want answers. They're searching for answers, but they're searching for the answers that will satisfy them, and so they leap into conclusions. So I just want to say to those of you that follow me here on Newsauce, we want to go with logic, and we want to kind of, calm and cool and soothe the emotions, because I don't think it helping anybody at all for us to get so upset about an issue that we decide that the only way we want to deal with an issue of neglect and negligence is violence. That's crazy, because it's the same violence we upset about whole week. The same violence we want to visit on the parents and the neighbor in that community is the same violence that we was just talking about and saying, nah, is not a good thing. So I feel, well, you need to stop and recognize the hypocrisies in your behavior. Right? So let us move on. Let me move on to this. Let me find. So we reached we're on the final topic. We're on the final topic. Brace all yourself, eh? We have a little mousy video to watch.
How can you seriously put the name of whatever it is you're going to do next week? How to what? How to land grab and get away with it? Are you for real? Are you serious? How to land grab and get away with it? And you have a minister, Cummins, I think, and Minister Becker's going down there with his former PNM councillor in charge of the Heliconia to go and tell people how to land grab and get away with it. Shame! Disgraceful! These people have absolutely no care for anything. And then those two ministers have nothing to do.
So let me pause it here. Couple things. That Heliconia poster was photoshopped by a UNC social media page. You all know the page Kick Out the PNM? Right. I know the persons behind the page. I know the persons who just do the graphics and them kind of things so for the page. Right? That page is a UNC support page. And they took a flyer that the Heliconia Foundation had put out, and the flyer was not saying how to land grab and get away with it. The flyer was inviting persons to come to hear about how they could go about getting and accessing land. And I'm going to try very hard to stay away from how upset the UNC and its supporters become whenever they hear about supporters of the People's National Movement trying to get access to land. Because I feel like when it comes to land and land ownership and land tenure in this country, African descended people have had the very nasty end of the stick when it comes to land tenure. There are many other ethnic groups in this country that have benefited from state land, from the state giving away land, giving out land. We have talked about that here. Who was able to get land and who was gifted land, who was given land for various reasons, who was allowed to buy land at reduced rates, and then other persons who, through legislation and other means, were denied access to land. So when I see the United National Congress upset about 2 parliamentarians and an attorney meeting with persons to talk to them about how to access land, how to get land, how to settle land, I'm like, well, why are they upset about that? Wouldn't you, if as the United National Congress you are saying that you are a party for the entire population of Trinidad and Tobago, if you are saying that you as a opposition, you want to represent the interests of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, wouldn't you then put yourself out there and hold land tenure conversations with everybody in all 41 constituencies, so that people from across the various constituencies who don't understand how to go about getting land, who don't understand how land use could help to pull you out of poverty, who don't quite grasp that land is one of the ways in which you could secure wealth for yourself and for future generations, you wouldn't do something like that? You wouldn't think that you owe it to your voter base and your future voter base and the voter base that you're saying you want to represent. You wouldn't think that you owe it to people to do something like that? So here you have Foster Cummings, Penelope Beckles, and an attorney, Farai Hove Masaisai, having a meeting with people to talk about land tenure. And the United National Congress grabs the flyer and they change it around. And of course they use, very emotive, inflammatory language, how to land grab and get away with it. And I looked at the land grab word and I thought to myself, this is ironic. This is very ironic, because I feel quite certain that I could talk about land grabbing from a United National Congress perspective. But let me still my tongue this evening and not say anything too inflammatory when it comes to the UNC and land. So Kamala makes this statement, and then she finds out that her statement is incorrect. And as the opposition leader, a lawyer, senior counsel, somebody who was once prime minister in this country, she doubles down on having defamed both Foster Cummings, Penny Beckles, and Farai Masaisai.
With lands. If they come to tell us now, we're going to see about land tenure for farmers and so on. But we're the minister who in charge of land for farmers.
It's interesting that she thinks that land tenure is only for farmers. And of course, that's dog whistling going on there, because in Kamala's mind, only people that resemble Kamala or resemble my last name are farmers. That's how she has it in her mind. It has not occurred to Kamala that there are persons of African descent who are farmers, that there are persons of African descent who are in farming, and persons who are of African descent that want to be able to own land. Apparently that don't occur to Kamala. Somebody who positioning herself as wanting to run the country and represent all of us. All you know me. I as a woman just remember these things. I as a woman just remember when racist, semi-racist, could be racist, heading towards being racist, and divisive comments come out of Kamala Persad-Bissessa's mouth. I am a woman will compile all of these things and sit down and do a live and show you the 20 times and the 30 times Kamala Persad-Bissessa said things that were not in favor of an inclusive approach to things in Trinidad and Tobago. And land tenure, this issue of land tenure, it heading in that direction.
With such a damaging report. Okay, I'm sorry.
So this is where things start to change. So after she blatant statement about land grabbing, listen to her now.
Okay, somebody sent me a note. They said the Heliconia graphic was Photoshopped. It is not about land grabbing, but about land tenure. My point still hold. My point still hold.
How can her point still hold? If the whole purpose of your point was to say that Penny Beckles, Foster Cummings, and Farai Hove Masaisai were holding a meeting to tell people how to land grab, and thereafter you get a message or an amendment saying to you, well, no, it was a photoshopped image and it's really land tenure. How can your point still hold? Because your point was they were actually telling people how to do something illegal. Because land grabbing is illegal. What's going on? We're going to be done just now, Starboi. I tell you, after our Starboi, just be fed up of me inside here, you know. So, she is there talking about land grabbing. It's not about land grabbing, it's about land tenure. And in Kamla's mind, she could continue with this line of argument.
My points still hold. My points still hold. What is Cummings going to tell you about land tenure? He can't even show documents what which land he have or don't have. What is Ms. Beckers going to tell you about land tenure? Thank you for the heads up. But I'm still right in my...
She's still right. Madam Senior Counsel, former Prime Minister, current opposition leader. But you know what's the sad part about this? The media didn't take her to task on it. The only media person that I saw, apart from myself, do something about this was Kijan Haynes. As a matter of fact, I got it from Kijan's wall first and shared it to my page because I wanted everybody to see that this is the kind of foolishness that is be taking place in the Monday Night Forum. So Kamala would have started up with that foolishness about Foster. Come, sweetheart, stop making noise. And then we had, oh God, Senator Jayanti. What? Come, Olio, give me 2 seconds. Come, sweetheart. Come, you wanna come? Come on, mama lap. Let me finish my live, Jayanti comes on and she says, I have received a pre-action protocol letter from the embattled Minister Foster Cummings. Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal would have gone on to the same Monday Night Forum herself and cast aspersions against Foster Cummings. And so Foster had to come out and defend himself. So in the midst of all of that foolishness with Jayanti calling on Foster to say that Foster had to clear up things about land and land acquisition, the Prime Minister then had to hold a press conference at the post-cabinet press conference. He had to come out and say things, and he had to come out and defend Foster. So let's listen to what the Prime Minister had to say.
The other matter I would like to deal with is the matter having to do with allegations made against a member of the cabinet. And those allegations largely made and propagated from the political platform of the UNC, of all places. Ladies and gentlemen, I appointed Mr. Foster Cummings as a senator under the authority that resided in the office of Prime Minister. I did that in September 2015. And he, during the period September 2015 to August 2019, was a senator in the government. During that time, he also conducted, as he was free to conduct, his private business, because as you know, if you're a senator without any portfolio, like a parliamentary secretary or a minister in a ministry, or a minister with a full portfolio, you in the parliament, our parliament is viewed as part-time unless you get ministerial appointment, and people are free to conduct their professional or commercial business. And that applies to Mr. Cummings too. Matters not that he's PNM, or that he's the general secretary of the PNM, or that he's any kind of person.
Oh God, stay still. So that would have been the Prime Minister. Just now. Right. This dog giving me such a hard time. And he would have had more
So
to say.
time passes, and of course, another set of allegations, a different package, came up recently. And it came up, and this time they were sure that this is going to be damaging and it's going to cause the government pain, because you know what? It came from a special branch report. And I dare say that the average citizen in this country would be open to being misled by that approach. Because one, it was coming to you from a former prime minister, from a party that was the government of this country, from a lawyer who is in the Senate as an independent, as an opposition senator, and wherever else they could propagate it from. So the average citizen could take the position quite reasonably that this is something that the Prime Minister must act on. And even you in the media, I'm not to tell you how to do your work. I try hard not to do that. But when a responsible person presents a document, and the main engine of driving that document in this country is that it is a special branch report, and you in the media don't even ask or even put in your story, what about the content? To what extent are the contents substantial and accurate and factual?
So the Prime Minister made a very important point there. Just now, sweetheart. Just now, right? Just give me 2 seconds and we're out of here. So the Prime Minister made a very important point there. And the point is this. Whether or not, Starboi, quiet, bite my foot. Whether or not Foster Cummings has done something illegal is not for him, the Prime Minister, to determine. If there is a special branch report, as Jayanti and Kamla have been alleging, then the police are supposed to do the investigation. The Prime Minister doesn't investigate, he doesn't litigate, he don't take people to, he doesn't, he not running the judiciary, none of those things. And if they come and they say that there is a report and this is what is in the report, then it behooves media to do the right thing and to get the information from the report. Because once they get the information from the report, they then present it to the public. Here at Newsauce, that's how we just run things. If I come and I tell all you, Faris had to step down as Attorney General, do I just come and wave papers and say Faris had to step down as Attorney General? If I come and tell all you, Gary Griffith should not be the Commissioner of Police, I just come and wave paper and tell all you Gary Griffith should not be the Commissioner of Police? No, that's not how we just conduct affairs here. I will come and I will show all of the evidence and I will break down the evidence for all you. So, I agree with the Prime Minister. There's a report. But we don't know what the report is about. Hold a second. I feel I had to start to hire a babysitter for Starboi, yes. We don't know what is in the report. Media has not asked what is in the report. Media has not gotten anybody at all to elaborate on things. So they've not gotten Kamla to elaborate. They've not gotten Jayanti to elaborate. They've not gotten anybody to say what exactly is in the report. So what do we know? We know only that Jayanti has come out and waved documents and said she has a report and that's it. So we can't draw conclusions. You can't draw conclusions. You need to have information to draw conclusions. So hopefully, we will get to a point where we begin to ask the correct follow-up questions after accusations have been made. because those things need to happen. We need to get to the point where we are asking the correct follow-up questions after accusations have been made. So folks, this is where I want to wrap things up this evening. On Sunday, I have a special interview for you all. One of the persons who suffered abuse at one of these state homes, physical and sexual abuse at one of the state homes, granted me an interview. So I am in a position to play that interview for you all. I have to doctor the person's face and voice, of course, but a guy who was sexually abused at one of those homes has decided that he will give his side of the story. And so on Sunday, I am going to be sharing his side of the story with you. So I will see you all on Sunday, and we're going to close up this look into abuse at state homes. Okay? You all have yourselves a good evening. Thanks for